Hi, everyone. Excited you're joining us for our latest Future of Food series, AI and Food. Today, we're talking about the future of food with Tarini Naravane, our wonderful PhD fellow who has been with us at Bluestein Ventures for the last 8 months. Tarini is finishing her PhD in biological systems engineering from UC Davis. Her multidisciplinary background spanning computer science, computer engineering, even professional baking, gives her a unique perspective on leveraging research science for innovative applications in the food industry. Tarini's research focuses on applying machine learning to predict the nutrition and sensory properties of food formulations. Her goal is to make food value chains more efficient, profitable, and less wasteful. Tarini's work lays the groundwork for radical new uses of machine learning in food production. We'll have a wide-ranging discussion covering Tarini's research, the potential of AI in the food industry, and her vision for using data and technology to transform how we produce and consume food. I'll kick it off by introducing myself and then hand it over to Tarini to share more about her background. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Aditi Tamhankar. I'm an analyst at Bluestein Ventures. Bluestein Ventures is an early stage venture fund based in Chicago, investing in the future of food. We have a mission to transform the food system to be better, healthier, and more sustainable. We invest across the supply chain in food, including goods on the shelf, how goods get to the shelf, and how goods are made. If you want to go more in depth about the topics we discuss in this video, be sure to check out our multi-part series on AI in the food industry, written by Tarini, on the Bluestein Ventures Substack, and the link will be in the description. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Tarini to introduce herself further, give her background, and highlight her focus areas within AI.
Thanks, Aditi, for the introduction. I am Tarini, and this is really exciting time for me. Exciting to be here, and exciting because I'm transitioning from my PhD at UC Davis, and I've launched my startup for AI in food formulation. So working with Bluestein Ventures came at the perfect time for me. I had the chance to sit on the investor side of the table. And overall, our missions align. My mission is to enable efficient R&D in food production through AI solutions. So with this background, as you've heard about me from Aditi and from myself, I will say that I am certain that AI is capable of learning the patterns in food production. But the main limitation is data. AI today is still powerful, even with the data we have at hand. I think AI in this limited scope is already amazing because we are building data sets of knowledge that has never happened before. And it will certainly make the data intensive tasks that already exist today easier for the human expert.
Yeah, for sure. Can you share like areas within the food industry that you think are most ripe for AI application? What are the trends you're seeing there?
Yeah, definitely good to sort of zero in on what's really working and how and where. And the food industry is vast. So before I answer this question about what is ripe, I'll give some context. How do I see this vast spectrum? We divide our view of the food industry into three segments. And as Aditi mentioned, there will be a Substack series where you can read more about this. So first and foremost, these three segments, the first one is to understand what the consumer needs. It all starts with serving the consumer. At the very least, the consumer is looking for affordable, tasty, and healthy. Then this is the formulation this is the input to food formulation and manufacturing, which is the second segment. finally, there is the guts of the business, that is all the operations and logistics to produce food and get it to the consumer. In all these segments, there are problems that are ripe for AI solutions. I will give an example from each of these segments. In the consumer segment, it is a challenge to draw clear and actionable insights from different kinds of consumer data, feedback data. So here we know there's a problem. We know we need to understand the consumer. This is ripe for that opportunity. Then in food formulation, a common use case is to swap out an unhealthy ingredient or add a healthy ingredient. Recipe modification is very complicated, and this is a job for chemistry with AI. Then in the operation segment, it could be demand forecasting for better inventory management to avoid food waste. So these are examples where the time is ripe, meaning that there is a known market need, and it is possible to get the right data and in the adequate quantity for reliable and accurate AI predictions.
Yeah, thanks for contextualizing this problem for us, Tarini. It sounds like the market is right, but also that the potential of AI might not align with the capabilities today. I'm excited to flesh this out some more as we dive into the three segments of AI in formulation, AI in operations, and AI in consumer applications. So first, let's move into formulation. How is AI being used in R&D and the formulation space for food and beverage products? And what is driving this adoption and how has that evolved in recent years?
So I'll start kind of front and center. The big incentive is for rapid and cost-effective formulation. If we know something isn't working in a food, we want to switch it out, bring in a new thing, do it as quickly as possible. The complication is that formulation has to optimize for many objectives at the same time. If you know something's not healthy, there's too much sugar, you have to solve that. If you reduce the sugar, it doesn't stale faster, it will reduce its shelf life. So there are many objectives. And the need for AI solution is that the prevalent method of experiments, it can only test limited possibilities and limited outcomes at once. And it is based on trial and error, which means that you only know when something is a success or a failure, but you cannot ask why. You can't convert that learning in terms of data. So that's kind of the big incentive, right? You get to the answer faster and cheaper. Now, there are a few stages in the end-to-end food formulation process, and AI can be used in all of those stages. It can be used to discover new molecules, like a protein that has a binding function to replace sugar. It can be used to scale up precision fermentation to produce higher yields at lower cost, and finally, to create a food product. And this includes knowing which ingredients, how much to add, and what is the processing.
Yes, super interesting. What do you think are the biggest opportunities in this AI formulation space for companies today?
So bigger breakthrough innovations, faster and cheaper, that solves the current limitations. Experimental trial and error methods, they can test a range of possibilities. AI can explore a larger solution space and find the most likely to succeed formulations. This is, faster, cheaper, and it reduces food waste. Most food experiments are going to fail. That's just how food works, and that becomes food waste. Then the next opportunity is it's a platform of solutions. There is a common pattern in the chemistry of how food comes together. All grain-based products will behave the same way. Cheeses will behave the same way, meaning that there are certain profiles, taste and texture profiles that are common to these, which means the ingredients you use also must have these properties. So when you learn how ingredients end up in the final product, then you can extend this to similar ingredients and similar products. And this is a platform. And finally, the biggest opportunity is to generate massive data sets. High resolution data is becoming cheaper and more abundant. And this is a contrast to early AI solutions that were based on experimental data and they were harder to scale. And we know that high resolution data is the key because of the success of AlphaFold. And that success has led to discovery of all kinds of proteins for health and food function in just 2 and 3 years. So it is clear that high resolution data for all the other classes of food molecules will have similar success and in scaling and creating these platform solutions. So I think that we will see more startups offering solutions with greater sophistication and really using the opportunities that there are.
Yeah, really interesting point about the data and generating kind of higher quality data sets. So yeah, definitely agree there. What products created using AI-driven formulation are you tracking or excited by right now?
I've heard not goes, not milk is very good. And I think, the point I made earlier about exploring the full possibility of solutions, they really use that. And I think that they identified, which they say that the special ingredients came from pineapple and cabbage. That's just what I've read. I'm just repeating that. So I think that's amazing, kind of really validates what I said earlier. I've seen Shiru's solid fat, but I've not tried it. They discovered a protein which added in a 595 blend with sunflower oil makes it firm like butter. This is exciting, but whether it behaves like butter, like in a croissant, is a different matter. I've also tasted a fat analog in ice cream, kind of very creamy texture, but it fell short of dairy in the mouthfeel. So very exciting, there's already some success, but food is very complex. And that's why having data is necessary. It helps us understand why something works and why it fails, or what is left to solve about that problem. So it's very exciting. I think we're just at the start of what AI can do, and I believe it is powerful.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you for giving those thoughts on AI formulation. I'm excited to kind of pivot into more of the AI on the operations side. I think we've heard a lot about that from, the VC perspective. I've definitely spoken with a lot of companies doing that. But yeah, curious to know your thoughts. How can AI enhance the way businesses handle operational challenges?
So I will start by commenting on the data because we can only handle the challenges where we have the data. And here, compared to formulation, what data variables we need to measure is not as much of a challenge. For example, collecting data on machine performance, how much power is it using, or collecting inventory data, what is sitting on your shelves. Once we have this data, AI can connect across operations, for example, to relate logistics decisions to profitability. And in fact, there are emerging ERP enterprise resource planning solutions that are expanding their use cases within the food industry, kind of very nuanced to what a business is doing, what decisions is it making, and was it really productive? So this is how AI can break down information silos. The other opportunity for businesses is that AI solutions can help with complex future predictions like forecasting disruptions in ingredient supply chains. This is a complex multivariate problem, and the data might not exist, might exist, but finding the pattern needs AI.
Got it. And so what white spaces do you see in this market for AI to help streamline operations? And, is this just applying to businesses like of all types or just manufacturing? If you could just even elaborate on that, it'd be great.
Yeah, so I think traceability and provenance, where your food comes from, is an obvious white space. This is mainly because of the FDA ruling on food safety with a compliance deadline of January 2026, so in less than 2 years. The other white space is food waste. This is already a massive and a growing problem. This can be addressed by traceability if we know where the food has been, if it's been, sitting in a warehouse in a warm space, just that knowledge can help us fix something. In addition, there are many inventory management solutions like Guac, MetaFoodX, and Strela. I recently read in the New York Times article that there's a solution called Winnow that actually places a camera in a garbage bin outside a hotel to record what consumers are eating and throwing away. I think this is, a white space, a great opportunity. It's not a job a human would do either. So, lots of good ideas. Food waste, definitely, it's a huge interest. Everyone's aware of it these days. And there's room for many diverse solutions since supply chain logistics are complex. I will also mention, having said that these are the white spaces, there are also challenges. And it is, the infrastructure. So what sensors do we use? What data are they collecting? How quickly do we need to process this data? Is it in real time? How does the data stream? So, for example, if something is rotting, especially if it's meat or something, it's important to be alerted as soon as possible.
Yeah, for sure. And then now let's pivot into consumer. So, how can AI enhance the way food and bev companies understand their consumers? I know it's very top of mind now for a lot of companies and, targeting consumers, increasing brand loyalty. How does that work today?
So kind of marketing to your consumers, it starts with understanding, the message that's out there, like how are consumers responding to it? Are they satisfied by it? How are they thinking? And tools for insights into consumer purchasing behavior. This is where it all starts for a business. Consumer behavior is a complex mix of factors like price, taste, convenience, and health. These trade off against each other, could be dependent on the demographic or the product. Which is why a critical aspect to pulling out this insight is what's the data you're using to get this insight. Typically social media data has been used a lot, but it's very general. It doesn't give you precise insight. And direct consumer feedback can give you that, but it takes a while to collect. So, for example, social media data could be a trending flavor. And direct consumer feedback could be, that trending flavor, but for a specific product and by a specific demographic. So AI can make sense of all of these sort of heterogeneous data sources, at the same time.
Got it. And then as consumers ourselves, what are the potential benefits or drawbacks will we see as AI is integrated into the food industry in the coming years?
So consumers today, kind of big change and I think COVID had a lot to do with it. Consumers really became aware of immunity, and inflammation. And so consumer health became very important. And also personalized health, because consumers became aware that what works for somebody else is not going to work for them. So I think consumers, their biggest benefit is now they've got a whole spectrum of tools which gives them this information. So I think there's definitely more benefits than drawbacks. And I'll give some examples of this like spectrum of solutions. The search and discovery apps, which assign a score to a food, indicating their suitability for a variety of special dietary restrictions, allergens, or they even identify ingredients that are associated with disease risk based on latest scientific research. Yuka, Food IQ, Verify, they're all solutions in that category. Then meal planning. There are consumers that want, a little bit more control over what they're eating. They want to have control over what goes into their food. Meal planning is a huge operation. It starts with, buying ingredients, cooking them. Different people have different requirements in the same family. It also takes time to clean. So there may be certain days of the week that you can cook. So you want to do a weekly planning or, batch cooking. You want to manage your inventory and costs. You don't want to have something that you're not using and then it gets wasted. You want to use leftovers. You want to integrate with e-commerce. So end to end, it's a lot of moving parts. And most of the solutions out there do it all. Init is a good example of a solution that's really worked to understand consumer behavior when cooking. And personalized health, I mean, this one goes really deep. Here, you want to eat something, you want to see how your body reacted to it, and then you want to make the changes. So the solutions are wearables and diagnostics, and they emphasize disease prevention or even intervention. And they use, and the suggestions is a combination of dietary changes or supplements, sleep, exercise, and so on. The glucose measuring instruments, those are really popular. There's many of them, like January AI. Then there are more complex solutions like Insight Tracker that combines data from blood reports, DNA, and then it also tells you about your metabolic age, and then makes recommendations to your diet and lifestyle. And the greatest benefit is that consumers are becoming aware, they're becoming educated about what they need personally. Also, the other benefit is that there's this feedback loop of solutions. So the whole industry actually moves forward. Everything is forced to evolve. On the flip side, human physiology is very complex, probably the most complex life science we have, much more complex than food formulation. So this could mean that collecting the data for that evolution of a more complex and more precise prediction could take a while.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just on the investor side, we've seen a huge push for more automation in kitchens driven by inflationary pressures and labor costs. And, it's very clear how this would benefit a business with controlling labor costs. However, there's been very little research done on the effect of this culinary automation on consumers and the pleasure consumers get from actually eating the food. Initial research is showing that the context food is prepared in, including who or what made it, is important to the dining experience. And that may be lost as we progress in this area. Of course, I mean, there are benefits too. Reducing the cost of freshly prepared food may enable better dining experiences in places with limited resources, like nursing homes or schools. And there's also a possibility that consumer preference will shift to accept culinary automation as the new normal. And maybe some of the factors that go into that context will change as consumers are more used to this technology being implemented. Um, yeah, well, thank you for the thoughts on consumer. I think now we're going to pivot into really discussing the future of food and what, all of these aspects of AI integration will look like. Just on the investor side, when we're looking at the AI space within food, we look for true differentiation. And this means that startups will need to create a moat, leveraging proprietary data sets along with great UX and seamless integration into existing softwares, some of which may be legacy softwares. So curious to get your thoughts. How can AI startups in the food and bev space create true differentiation?
Yeah, great point about differentiation. We really need to know how solutions stand out. What do they do that's different? What are they bringing? And I'll speak to differentiation in the space of food formulation. As I mentioned, food formulation is complex, which means there is room for a lot of diverse solutions. And the challenge to differentiating is unique data sets. You have to start with something unique to get something unique coming out of it. I'll give you an example of what is like not unique and differentiated. Social media data is not differentiated. So what that means is you need differentiated data to create a solution, and that needs to be good quality and a proprietary data set. As for a business, your moat is something that a competitor cannot easily replicate. So you own the niche problem space, and then you own the solution.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. And we've all heard so much hype around AI, but just there's this question about timing. Why is now the right or wrong time for AI to be implemented in the food industry? And what do you think will be the catalyst for AI implementation in food formulation, operations, and consumer?
Yeah, that's great. I mean, AI is, again, like, I love your questions. They all really sort of hit the nail on the head. I think AI is a new technology. Of course, it's going to be disruptive. Of course, people are going to get excited. We need all that for the new technology, and it's kind of hard to put the brakes on it. So I think the hype makes a lot of sense, but it's very important to distinguish the hype from the reality. And so the premise behind what has created the hype is the belief that there is a jumbo data set that is capable of approximating knowledge and expert intuition. This is what is not right. Because today we can't get this data because fundamentally we don't know how to measure it, especially concerning food and health. This is changing. Projects like the Periodic Table of Foods initiative is creating large data sets. Even that is not the complete scope. It shows what can be done and how large this effort is. Um, and so what we need today, because a business needs to still solve a problem that is relevant, so we need a solution that targets a part of the problem space. And then it's not a hype if we target this. It does well and then it grows. So if we take this approach, the AI generated predictions are reliable and the models are scalable within the problem space. And I believe this is really a software as a solution approach to a business and a revenue model for startups.
Got it. What
So,
trends within AI are you watching that will develop in the next 5 years?
yeah, so then there is a topic of reality, like what's possible today and, kind of in a 5-year time horizon. So I'd say advanced data capabilities, that's going to happen. So we can start measuring all this data. Then there'll be events like the regulation for food traceability. That's going to, put focus on what needs to develop now. And then, there could be unanticipated events. It always happens. Something happens that you weren't expecting. The way COVID happened, it revealed gaps in logistics, and consumers grew aware of personal health. And earlier, we've already spoken about the market drivers. So I think the reality is the combination of drivers, some that you can expect or some you can't, and today's state of the art.
Yeah, makes sense. Last question. We often hear that the benefits of AI will disproportionately go to large tech companies, especially, in the context of more general models, LLMs. Is it a similar situation in the food industry that these large food conglomerates will be faster to invent, adopt, and implement this technology at scale?
Yeah, generally speaking, I will say that the large company advantage is not always true because the food industry is broad, highly fragmented, and the solutions needed are complex. At this point, the effort needed is largely research, and this is a focused task for a small company. Large conglomerates have historically been behind on innovation within the food industry, leaving more room for the innovative companies to disrupt this status quo. I think your point about larger tech also makes sense. For example, LLMs are a breakthrough in Gen AI, they're easy to use, and this is where small companies have less of an advantage. To end, I will say that whether large or small companies, collaboration is the key to innovate and adopt the technology at scale.
Yeah, thank you, Tarini, for all of your insights. It's been great having you as our PhD fellow at Bluestein. I think the next few years will be very interesting, and I'm excited to see what AI can and will do in food. Reminder to all of those watching that we have a series on our Bluestein Venture Substack that goes more in depth about all of the topics we discussed today. So be sure to check that out. Link will be in the description. And thank you for tuning in to this episode exploring the future of food and AI.